welcome to Hire, Navigate Your Job Search in another week. I just love the intro, as I said probably a couple of times before. I went through 300 reviews of music to make sure that we had a good introduction. And here's the backstory of that, is that when we're going, especially through job transition and just what things may have happened, maybe Friday, last week, etc., is that, we have to start picking up pieces in order to put things back together to move forward. And so, I do love that Palamo Faith that sings this version. And we are live on LinkedIn Live, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live. And by Saturday afternoon, this will be uploaded to all the podcast platforms. I'm just trying to speak faster than I think here, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Here at Hire, we take one topic and go over how to navigate your job search better. And we also ask a subject matter expert to join us to really kind of go deep into these questions. And we also ask the viewers that are looking and watching us on live to actually ask a question, because the question that you might ask might be on 10 other viewers' minds, but no one has kind of the intestinal fortitude to put that question out there, and we appreciate it if you do. I want to introduce special guest, Juliet Fox. And before I do, I want to talk a little bit. Juliet Fox is the co-founder, and if you remember, Heather Lamb was on here a couple of weeks ago, and it's her co-partner. But she is the co-founder and executive business officer at AvidEdge, that specializes and conducts high integrity, world-class retained technology executive search. Maybe I need to go back to bed. And world-class retaining executives with 30 years of global experience and establishing herself as a trusted partner and advisor. Julia has established herself as a trusted partner and advisor, and I can attest to that. Her passion for technology and commitment to building adaptable, collaborative organizations makes her an invaluable asset to both clients and technology leaders. So welcome to the show, Juliet, and I hope that I didn't really mess that up all too bad.
You have this. I also have this thing where the main thing I'm doing at the time I can't spell. So you should see how many times I
kind of like that reverb, right? It just goes back and forth, and you're just like, how do I get kicked out of this little valley I've created? Hey,
it'll all clear up. It's Friday.
Would you like to tell us a little bit more about AvidEdge? Because it's a new endeavor you guys have created. So tell us a little bit about maybe the direction, and more important, how maybe we can help you here at Hire, Navigate Your Job Search, or how potential people listening might be looking for that right candidate.
Yeah, George, I just want to commend you on the things that you've done in this area, as so many people have gotten jobs from your advice and your networking. And so I just want to remind everyone out there what a job you've done for everyone else around here. So AvidEdge was created out of the idea that I wanted to do search in a way that sticks and is about a partnership and about understanding. So last year I started dreaming up this idea and brought Heather in to help me canoodle it together. And we decided to build AvidEdge. And really the difference, our niche is different. Oh, look at that. That's great.
Yeah. You got fans already.
We like to put our special sauce into the bookends of our searches. In other words, we do an ad nauseum discovery process all the way down to who do we know that's married to someone at that company? What do they come home to complain about and celebrate, and all of those pieces. And then on the other end, AvidEdge coaches our executives that we put in place. So we spend 3 months building a consultant in a coaching practice around that person and give them what they need. So we specialize in technology leaders, CIOs, CISOs, CTOs, VPs, some directors, and so that we can really get into the meat of what it is. And, it's like why hasn't anyone else done this before? And I think some other executive searches really do similar, but we were willing to forego a huge margin profit in order to make this incredibly well suited for both our clients and our candidates. So just thrilled on the trajectory. We love it. And I said to myself, George inspired me. If I'm going to go out, I have about 15 years left in me. I'm going to do something that is meaningful. So thank you, George.
Well, I appreciate that. I didn't know that, but then I need the help, because I've been told that I probably shouldn't chase the W-2, as most people know already. The last 4 weeks, I'm in job search myself, so I have always found that the reason why I do what I do, it's always the why, right? Is that I've been there a couple of times, and now there again. Is that it is some of the lowest parts of your life, and the interesting thing is the people that you think might help probably help very little. The people you don't even know yet probably help you the most, and that actually happened to me quite a few times. And so I just want to be there when the person may be at their lowest and just trying to find a direction, because you build a relationship over a period of time, and it's a special bond that just doesn't get broken.
Yeah, I agree. It is a low time, and sometimes we need those low times to refocus, right?
Right.
We need to say what do we really want, and why have we run into these stumbling blocks? And it might be because where we're going is somewhere different than we really need to be. It's not our true self, right?
Oh, great. So let's get back on the topic here. Can you share your own personal experience, as we were talking in the success story? It's about finding a unique and paid adventure while in the midst of job search. And I call them sometimes filler jobs, right? And other people have other ones. But I've also found that people go into it, like maybe an interim role, and then all of a sudden they get hired for that role.
Right.
So can you share with us?
Well, I like to call it a paid adventure. That could be a job too. That could be exactly what you're looking at. It's a new way of framing a job search, right? So it's a paid adventure, right? You're following your heart and you're doing your thing. One of the things that always comes to mind when we think about not only a job search, but really, how many times have you read books where they're like, follow your passion, right? Follow your passion, do it inspires you. And sometimes when we go to follow our passion, we realize that there is a lot more to building a business than just being passionate about that thing. I've been reading a book I've read this book before, but I read it again now that we started AvidEdge, and it's called E-Myth. Have you read that book, George?
Nope, but it's on my list now.
I'll send it over to you. The E-Myth really describes that, he calls it an entrepreneurial seizure, right? Where we're like, no, I want to do the thing I'm passionate about. But when it gets into it, that is the technician at work, right? That's the thing you love to do. When you build a business, you got to work on the business, and working in the business and doing that thing may not lead you to that business. So I always say, yeah, follow your passion. But if you're going to open a business, you got to be a business person. You got to understand what business is. And you may not, that thing that you love to do may be only 20, 30% of what you do in this business. 70% of it is taxes and labor and social media and all of those other things, right? You got to love those too. You have to love those as much as the rest of it. You're building on that business. So I say, yeah, follow your passion, but understand the surroundings around it. You, like you said, George, I'm looking for that W-2. I'm looking for that thing. That might actually be the best way for you to serve the rest of the world and yourself as what you want to do, because you don't have to do all that other stuff, right? You don't have to be that business owner. So I always say, when you're looking be really clear about what you want. That's the hardest thing when you're in transition, because you want to say, I can do all this stuff, right? I can do all this stuff. I can do that. I can do this, right? I can do all this stuff. And it doesn't help us who are massive networkers in understanding where you're going to get it, where you're going to get that job. So here's what I say. You're going to find a job in 3 ways. You're going to find your passion. You're going to find your paid gig in 3 ways. 1, networking, which you have nailed in your experience and have shared with others. 2, you're going to be found by a recruiter. More and more companies are using recruiters to find their positions because it's so up in the air what's coming in with resumes. They could be true, they could be not true, they're not vetted, and to go through thousands of those themselves is a waste of time. And then 3, actually applying for a job, right? That actually does happen still.
Yeah.
that actually happens still. But the number 1 and 2 ways, if you don't have your stake in the ground, if you don't take a chance about what it is you want to do, you won't be able to attract all of that. So when I say, like, George, you have so many skills, right? I always talk about it in this hourglass. Is that hourglass? I should actually have a visual of that, an hourglass. All of our talents are those sands in the hourglass. They're not going anywhere, right? You just need to decide which ones fall first. And then people start to say, well, wait, George has all of these other skills that he could bring to the table, but you got in the door with that first few sands. So I say, put your stake in the ground, no matter what it is. Don't be afraid. It's going to create more opportunities than ever.
Yeah, what I find funny is that I get into a particular organization, especially the last 6 years, and they're like maybe 3 or 4 months down the road. The people that I'm working with, you wrote a book.
Exactly.
I'm like, yeah, I did.
Exactly.
What do you believe sets apart those who successfully find paid adventures during the job search for those who struggle to do so? Because there are some people that are out there, what I would call the tenured job searchers that are well above 8-9 months, and they're just fit to be tied.
Yeah, it depends on what you're running into. There's a couple of different caveats to kind of reverse engineer what's happening there, right? So if you end up being number 2 all the time in a position, right? You're like, oh, and I was number 2 again. I was number 2 again. It was number 2 again. Almost always, that is a tweak in your interviewing. Almost always. And so it just means however you think you're presenting yourself is not the way it's coming off. So you probably need some interview coaching if you're constantly finding yourself in that 2nd or 3rd position. If you're getting into the pool, like the pool of first 10 people into those jobs, and then you don't quite make it to the next level, it probably has something to do with how you're presenting yourself, right? Or the types of jobs that you're putting yourself in front of that are a little outside of your expertise. You don't quite have the sweet spot on that expertise. So tweak your search or tweak your resume. One of the ways that you do such good recommendations on how to tweak yourself and prepare yourself for a job. Ann Pryor does a great job. Lots of people in town. Kathy Crandall as well. Here's what I say. Take all that information and start finding where you fit in the marketplace. So here's an exercise that always seems to help, right? I don't really know what I want. I'm not sure what that job title is of the job I want. So I go what I call shopping, browsing for a job. Look for jobs way outside of what you'd actually apply for and start honing in on those responsibilities, right? What responsibilities tell you a lot. The rest of it is just check boxes. Responsibilities on a job search tell you a lot. They tell you the problem that company's trying to solve. What are they trying to solve? And then they talk about how they translate that problem to the things that you'll do. Now start narrowing in on those responsibilities that you're really good at and start plucking them out verbatim and make a note that has all of those responsibilities that you're like, I kill it at that. That's my specialty. That's my thing, right? You're going to have about 10 of those responsibilities and you're going to do 2 things with them. 1, you're going to make sure that you're stating your experience in exactly the same way. because recruiters, no offense to my fellow recruiters, we're not all that smart. We're doing word matching, right? We're doing, we need you to spoon feed us those titles and those sayings, all of those. Start restating what you've done in the responsibilities that you find yourself connected to. And then two, once you have a good set of those responsibilities, reverse Google them. And you'll find other position titles that you didn't even know existed in this day and age that will reveal themselves to you about a position that really does take advantage of all your skills. Then I say the first two ways you're going to get a job is putting your stake in the ground. Take all those titles and put them right under your name under LinkedIn. That way you're going to get not only the recruiters coming to you, but everyone you're networking with will know exactly those titles that you're looking for.
No, agreed. Barry Carlson, who's watching, asked the question, how do I get connected with AvidEdge? I just posted your LinkedIn profile saying,
awesome.
Just reach out, but also make sure if you can send comments, you always should send comments, right? Just say, hey, I just saw you on this show, love to connect with you, maybe give a reason why. It doesn't have to be long, but I can tell you that I've got probably over 400 requests that people just hit the connect, and it's like, I don't even know why we're connecting. So
well,
just
George,
an FYI, if anybody
look in the mirror. That's why they're connecting.
So what can someone identify their passions and interests and translate them into potential paid venture opportunities while still focusing on their job search?
Yeah.
Maybe you've talked a little bit about that, but maybe go into a little bit more detail.
There's a lot of support in side gigs right now, right? So play it out. I say just dive right in. I just met with someone yesterday who said, yeah, I'm looking for a job, but I'm also going to learn how to fly a plane. And I say go for it. Lean into those side gigs, those loves that you do. And always be looking to say, the visualization is such a powerful thing, right? You start to see the pathways, you start to see the opportunities that come your way with a vision like that. Keep that vision in front of you. Put it right in front of you. Put it on a Post-it. Stick it in your wallet. You will see the pathways that the thing you love to do opens up for you. And it'll happen in conversation. So now that this person told me they want to be a pilot, like suddenly I'm realizing, hey, I know somebody you might want to talk to that has a connection both from your CIO background and your desire to be a pilot. Here's a connection for you. So here's what I say. We always say, network. You say some great things about making people feel engaged in your company, making people feel engaged in networking. And there's all these rules around it. And I say, just come to the table and be you. And feel free to share those passions and so those excitements in networking and in online and in your social media, because you'll start to see the pathway and how they come together with both a job and a paid, side gig. If you want to do a podcast, do a podcast. You have no idea where it will take you.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I do tell people, be yourself because everybody else is taken. And we've met people, right? Especially when they're long in job transition, you see VPs wanting to maybe take senior managers roles. And then it questions the people that might be interviewing you or networking. It's like, okay, so why would you go down that low after gaining all this success? Is it just because you're desperate now? And back to your earlier comments, have you looked at all your options before making that selection? Or do you have it in your heart that, hey, I looked over my entire career and this is really what I was happy with the most, right? So I just tell people, don't try to be somebody you're not, because at some point it will be figured out and it might not be good for you.
Exactly.
The other point was, you had brought up the pilot. Is interesting enough, I was talking and helping a CFO in transition, and he didn't have the banner, which the other is the other taboo of not having. Have something that interests you, or maybe your background and your technology, whatever. You can go on Google and get 1200 by 800 pixel or better, but just put a picture. And he actually put a picture of his Cessna plane. And ironically enough, and of course this is probably a lot of luck, but 6 weeks later, he starts this interviewing process, and the CEO and some of the board started talking to him. He said, out of the hour, 45 minutes was talking about how their planes that they fly and the plane that I have are very similar in scope,
Yeah.
and where we went and what we did. And you just don't know where it will go.
You just really don't know. And, fly your freak flag is another way of saying it, right? Just don't be afraid to do it. There's a lot of, the couple things I'd like to mention, like Nathan Young just wrote a book on how to be second. And a lot of times we're pushed to I've got to have that top position. I've got to get up to that top position. And really, when you get there, you don't get to do all the things that you love to do. So really be self-aware on what you want to do. That's a great book. And then like Ready, Set, Pivot for women trying to see where you want to be, use your network and where you want to be. I'm speaking at their conference this fall. So I think they're filling up. So everybody should sign up for that too. That use your network, use these experiences to really dig in. It used to be, George, we're probably around the same age. You remember back in the day when we would interview for jobs and it would be like you puff up your chest, you work your ego really, you're strong in the mirror before you get into that interview. That's not today's strengths. Today's strengths are a lot more empathetic and real and authentic. And so you get to bring all of you into a position now. Do it. Take that chance. Otherwise, if you're someone else, you're going to get into that position and you're not going to be happy.
Nope, absolutely. What strategies can job seekers employ to balance a need for financial stability with the desire to pursue exciting and adventurous opportunities?
Well, I mean, that's a really good question. So say it depends on your financial situation. If you absolutely need money right now and your family's depending on you, you're going to have to do what you're going to have to do to make the money that you need. And I say, go and do that. And there's ways. So if you think about it as a Venn diagram, I need money, but I also want to do the things that I love. What's that sweet spot in the middle? How can you get into a job, make the money, make a difference? Maybe not the perfect job for you, but maybe it pays you and you get to be relaxed and comfortable, and it's something that works for your skills.
Yeah.
That's a win. That's a huge win. And so I say, do that thing, but also lean into the things you love. You have no idea where they'll take you.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, in my book, I talk about my first job transition where, and a lot of people fall into this. They're out there a little bit longer than they expected, and it's always going to be longer than you expected. So just plan for that. But I decided, okay, I'm going to go and do something busy. I'm going to learn something. And I actually went and worked for Home Depot during the week, right? As a plumbing supervisor, my interview consisted of 2 questions, right? But I learned more about plumbing in that year than I did in my previous 46 years. And more importantly, I learned how to sell direct to customers, because customers were coming to me and I didn't even know, I wasn't even prepared what their problem was, right? So it's like, okay, helping them figure out, walk through the process, which helped me in the long run. And then I took a job at the Amazon Shakopee plant at night. Imagine Thursday night, Friday night, and Saturday night from 6 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. Oh my God! Talk about kick your butt, right? But I learned stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was interesting is about a week before I put in my notice, the lead, who was probably as old as my oldest son, right, I reported to, he says, hey, you picked this stuff up pretty quickly. I'm like, yeah, I got a little bit of experience in a warehouse and so forth. And then about the day before I turned in he goes, I checked you out on LinkedIn. What are you doing here?
I think that's when we first met, George. I think that's when we first met back in the day. Yeah.
I mean, I think this process to me, it's truly transformational if you let it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can learn so much more about yourself you never thought of, and you can learn many great people and introduce to many great people that you would have never learned or met any other way, right?
Yeah.
That have transformed my life and helped me in many, many ways. opportunities.
Ditto. Yeah, same here. I would not be anything without my network advising
Absolutely.
me, calling me on my shots. You know?
Could you provide some examples of unconventional industries or avenues where job seekers might discover paid adventure roles that they might not have considered before?
Yeah. Well, this influencer stage has been huge as of late. So it's one of those things where um, I still believe put your vision out there and you'll find your connection. But there's a lot more potential side gigs than ever before, and it's hard to say go look here or go look there. It's easy to say learn about the thing that you love to do and learn how other people are doing it and step in with them. People are more than happy out of the blue. I've had several people out of the blue connect with me on LinkedIn. Sam Devine did the other day, and I don't know who he is, and now I love and adore him. Right,
Yeah.
so and I leaned into that connection, leaned into your network, what you love to do, and let it take you. You've written a lot about mental health during this transition and what to do to take care of yourself. And here's what I say: stay present. Right? Stay
Yes.
present. You. Everyone has these talents. You were not employed for no apparent reason before,
Right.
right? Companies are using layoffs to do reorg changes. Might someone say, an article I read, that that's the lazy way of doing organizational change, but it's kind of okay right now because everyone else is doing it. So this is not about you. What is about you is all of the things that you have to offer. Lean in and believe in those things. Relax into them. You're not going to get a job when you are feeling like you have to have a job.
Yeah.
You're going to get a job when you relax and lean into your skills. So whatever you do, meditation, running, all of those things, do them to keep yourself positive. The more your strengths and you lean into them, the better opportunities you'll have.
No, I totally agree. Um, or excuse me, how can networking and building relationships with specific communities help job seekers discover hidden opportunities for paid adventures?
Yeah. Here's the thing, Heather, my business partners, talked a lot about networking. She's a master networker. We know who some of those great networkers are in town and the
Hmm.
generosity that is given, especially in Minneapolis. We have this,
Oh yeah.
somebody
There's
called
probably
it
a there's probably a top
subculture.
10 that we're all you all connected to. Like
Exactly.
the Lenny Newmans, the Jenny
The Lenny
Jeffords,
Newmans and
and the
Jenny
Steve
Jeffers.
Staup's, and
Yeah.
you know,
All of them, Ryan Woolen, all of them, right? So
right.
that someone called it the other day, this subculture. And I thought that was kind of a cool title. We should embrace that.
Yeah.
So networking is, there's this weird feeling around networking, right? You're networking, you're doing it because it will help you get a job, but you can't do it for that reason. You can't do it even in that mindset. So
Yeah. It can't
when,
be
yeah,
transactional.
yeah, know that the byproduct of this is get a job, but go forward. Steve Blexrud talks a lot about the go giver. Go forward
Yeah.
in that networking meeting looking to give, and you will get more than you ever dreamed of.
Yeah. Bob
Find a way to
wrote that
give,
book. It's a
find a
great
way to
book.
help. And not only that, you know what, that helps with that mental piece that we were just talking about. The
Yeah.
more you can be helpful to someone else, the more they're grateful for the things that you've given them, the better you know about yourself, the more you believe in that thing that really drives who you are.
No, I agree. As a matter of fact, the second person I traditionally networked back in 2016 was Greg Rye. And early on in the conversation, he said, listen, learn this earlier than I did when I started networking is the more you give, the more you get. He says it's not going to be instantaneously, but over a period of time, you're going to put so much out there that it's just going to reciprocate tenfold. And he was absolutely right. I mean, again, 2016, nobody knew me. And I just met a guy the other day who does a lot of networking, and he says, you know what, George? When I talk to people, I either say, you know George Murray, and there's always two responses. Either yes, I'm already connected with him, or B, I've got a meeting with him next week or next 2 weeks or whatever. I'm like, hey, I'm blessed. I'm very blessed, but it took a little bit of effort, right?
It did. It's again, it's a byproduct. You didn't go out networking hoping that you're the central networker,
Right.
that you're the one people go to, but you're thrilled with that, right? Because you
Mhm.
leaned into that networking piece and felt what it meant to give. And so
Oh,
I
that's
do the
great.
same, right? I've been very encouraged by this culture, and how much we give and how much that comes back in very unexpected ways.
Can you share some tips for effectively incorporating the pursuit of paid adventures into one's resume and job search strategy without coming across as unfocused or inconsistent?
Yeah, that's a hard one. You really do need to put your stake in the ground, and I'll go
Hmm.
back to that. So that it may not be, and this is why I always suggest that market analysis. Like, go out there, see what people are saying about responsibilities under the title that you think you want, and then find titles that you didn't know existed. But you have to be able to put your stake in the ground. You have to say, I want a job in operations at this size of a company, working in a culture that looks like this, connected to business this way, working with vendors or suppliers or whatever it is. You need to just put your stake in the ground. And I know it seems limiting to all of you out there looking for a job, but it's actually the inverse. The more you put your stake in the ground, the more you narrow in, the better opportunities you'll get. And don't worry, all those amazing skills are still out there. The other thing I would say too, in that narrowing is, and I said this before on Kurt Schmidt's podcast, is don't put something on your resume that you don't want to do.
Right.
Like, just take it off. I know you're proud of that thing, but if
Hey,
you
by
don't
the
want
way,
to do
Kurt
it,
Schmidt has actually a good book on networking, The Little Book of Networking.
yes, he does. Yeah. So we talked about that too. And just narrow. Don't be afraid to narrow.
No, I
Otherwise you
absolutely
do
agree.
look chaotic. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. It was part of the conversation we had last week when Tony Rotundi was on here. And when I sit with him, one of his first responses was, don't be too focused, but don't be too vague. And we went into the story. You guys can go back and look at it and listen. But it is true, because one of the things I help coach people is that even I did it my first time. I made the mistake of not knowing my clear ask. So I get up from a networking meeting with a very networked person, and I'm not getting additional connections, and that dies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got to have clear understanding so that they know, hey, how can I help this person? Because I truly have believed in all this process of networking that majority of the people are out there want to help.
Yeah.
We fail to really decipher what the help is. We're always so vague, like you said, we're all over the map, and it's like, well, I just don't know how to help you. But if you're like what you had stated, here's where I'm at, here's what I'm looking for, blah, 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 then people can go back and say, I do know 3 or 4 people that might help you.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to tell stories about yourself. People remember stories, right? I literally tell so many stories. I have no idea what people remember about my stories, but stories, I will remember your story. I will remember the experience your child is going through. I'll remember where your kids are going to school, because I'm really interested in learning that. And somehow all those disconnected stories and pieces end up coming back to you as a way of never forgetting George, never forgetting how to help George, or never forgetting how to help Juliet. So that's what I say. Lean into the holistic part of networking, because it will give back to you. I sometimes, when I'm networking with a new person coming into this, they haven't networked before, and I ask them, hey, where you coming from? Do you have any kids, or what area did you grow up here? And I can see that maybe they're like, well,
They're not
are we
prepared,
ever going to talk about me getting a job?
right? Well,
And I'm like,
I need to understand you a little bit more, right?
that's right. I mean, it was like, I need to put your package together. I need to put your story together. I really want to know who you are, because that is who you're bringing to your next paid position, right?
Agreed.
So don't be afraid to wander off into those areas.
Last question before we ask for any other input is in your opinion, what's the most valuable piece of advice or mindset shift you can offer to job seekers who are looking to infuse their job search with a sense of adventure and exploration?
Yeah. Um, Reframe it, right? I You're looking for a job, sure, but this is an opportunity to rebuild who you are. I always said I can't be who I want to be for a new position unless I reframe what I'm doing now. So
Mm-hmm.
reframe it. Sure, you're looking for a job, but wow, you're meeting people. You're looking at yourself and really discerning some of the things that maybe you need to tweak or think about, or
Right.
maybe this thing you've been doing isn't exactly right. Then maybe it's a short bridge. My mentor and friend Gwen Martin always says that. What is your short bridge? If the thing you're doing right now isn't what you want to do, and now you have an opportunity to rebuild it, let's look for some short bridges. Like what? Maybe the supply chain into that area company might be the way to go. Maybe you're actually a salesperson. Let's think about that, right? Let go of your perspectives of looking for a job, who you are, and allow yourself to transform during this experience. That's exactly what it's meant. And sometimes people say, it just feels like my whole world is falling apart. I feel like I'm falling apart. And I'm like, I get it. You are falling apart. And that's exactly what you need to do to be the person you want to be in that next adventure.
It's scary. No, agreed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One last comment we talked about earlier about other associations or whatever. One that came to mind is I've actually helped a lot of maybe CEOs or CFOs looking for, small to medium-sized companies, and a lot of those are privately owned, right? I always tell people, reach out to chambers of commerce, and convert it to headcount, because again, a lot of those private companies are part of the Chamber of Commerce. They don't provide financial, but they provide headcount. And you can turn around and quickly assess that, a company that's probably got 150 people is definitely somewhere that's close to at least, 50 million in revenue, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you
Mm-hmm.
can work and communicate with those people in chambers of commerce, because they have a list of those, and say, hey, listen, do you have any manufacturing companies that are 1 to 200 employees? That's a list that you probably wouldn't even been able to find out.
That's right. And they'll give it to you, right? And
Absolutely.
do you have a friend in that area? Call them up. One of the most powerful exercises I did, and I learned it from other people, was when I was in transition, I was like, who do I want to be? Who am I? And what am I doing here? Like, what do I want to be? And I did my own scenario planning, right? I knew I wanted to be with humans. I knew I wanted to solve problems for humans. I wanted to be in IT, but I am not a good hands-on IT person. I needed to be entrepreneurial. So I narrowed it down to like 24 companies that I thought, fit some of those descriptions. And I just called them up and said, hey, would you do a 20-minute meeting with me just to tell me more about what you do? Because I'm really curious, right? I never said I wanted a job. I never said I
Right.
wanted to work with them. I just wanted to learn about them. And so I used my network to say, hey, can you introduce me to this person? Can you introduce me to that person? And that was, not only was it super informative, but it ended up opening up a huge amount of opportunities.
It's interesting that you use humans. As a matter of fact, my second book, Ignite, Engage, Retain, helping business owners and leaders transform their culture in the best way. And boy, a lot of businesses really need that today. I think the first line is that this book is for humans. And if you're not a human, then this book isn't for you. I just kind of look at tongue-in-cheek kind of chuckle, but again, I think in transition too, be human, be yourself. Don't overshare, right? The first meeting and give somebody kind of a shock and awe approach, but be genuine, be caring, be observant, right? And then more importantly, let them talk and take some notes and follow up with hey, thanks for giving me the time, because we know time is more precious than money, gold, or anything else, because you only have a certain amount of it. But then reinforcing, hey, I actually paid attention, right? And it's simple things, but a lot of people tend not to do it. So closing, anything else that we didn't cover that you'd want to cover? And when we do that, I also want to talk about how people can connect with you. Either Heather Lamb, who was on our show, could go to heather@avidedgesearch.com, or Juliet at avidedgesearch.com.
Yeah. Do everything, here's what I say, do everything you can do to be happy during the process. And that sounds really hard, but it is that I'm going to live through this. This is a blip on the screen. This is just a tiny little mark, and it's an opportunity for people to rebuild themselves. And so I always say, those paid side gigs, lean into those, right? Don't worry about doing something that you love. It's not taking away from your job search. It's adding value to it. So relax into that. Relax into it. It'll happen. Keep seeing it.
Well, Juliet, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming on and sharing your insight, and good luck with AvidEdge. I'm sure you don't need my luck, because you guys have already been knocking it out of the park.
Yeah, we're super excited. We are really happy that people want to do the things that we offer, and so we're really excited.
That's great. All right, we'll just send you back in the studio for a minute and close up the show. Let me see here. So just want to close up the show. If you are in job search and are struggling in an existing one, get a copy of Hired. It's out on Audible, Kindle, and Amazon. And also make sure that you take the notes that we had today along with the other 9 episodes. We have a really great guest next week as well. Always try to help people in job transition advance quicker into their next role, just so that you can get hired.
You're my